Hey everyone, today I have a sketchbook tour video for you. So I filled up this sketchbook from October 2017 to December 2018, and today I want to show you some of the sketches, the color swatches, the random stuff that are in this sketchbook. Now this is a custom-made sketchbook that is made by the Society of Physically Disabled here in Singapore. They are also known as SPD. This sketchbook is not available for sale to the public. You actually have to bring your own watercolor paper there and let them bind into a sketchbook for a fee, of course. So this is the first sketch. I drew this sketch for an online course that I'm selling. That course is on location drawing or drawing from observation. So in the first lesson, I taught the really basic fundamentals of drawing from observation. So this is the sketch that was featured in that course. By the way, if you are interested in getting the courses or learning more about drawing, you can check out my drawing courses on Gumroad. The link will be in the video description below. This is another sketch that I have created for the course. This is a one-point perspective scene, colored using just ultramarine and burnt sienna. Yep, I can see some browns here. So with more ultramarine, you get a very blue color, a very cool color like this. If you add a bit more ultramarine, you get a warmer tone like this. And this is some color swatches for the Ecoline brush pens. Ecoline inks are dye and water-based inks. They are very vibrant, but because they are dye inks, these are actually not light fast. So the colors may fade when you expose them to light. But in a sketchbook like this, when the sketchbook is always closed, color fading is not that big of a problem. This is another sketch from the drawing course. For this sketch, I use pencil and watercolor. This is the Sultan Moss. So this is a very simplified version of the sketch. This sketch is also from the drawing course, the observation drawing course. After I finish this sketch, I have to spray it with fixative because pencil marks, when you close the sketchbook together, the pages will rub against each other and pencil marks will go onto the opposite page. So it's important to spray fixative to protect the pencil. For this sketch, this was drawn with ink colored with water-soluble graphite. So water-soluble graphite usually, when they dry, they become permanent, but it's still graphite, so if you close the pages, the graphite will still rub off. So I have to spray fixative to protect this page as well. This, I think, is for a limited color palette video that I have made. Lemon yellow, quinacridone magenta, cerulean blue chromium. If you are new to my channel, I actually have a series of videos that focus on painting with a limited color palette. So it's quite fun to paint with just 3 primary colors. You can learn a lot, especially when it comes to painting shadows, because when you're painting shadows, you can only mix the shadows using the 3 colors, so it makes painting a bit easier. You don't have to think about what colors to choose to mix the shadow because there are only 3 shadows. You have to use them to mix the shadows. And cerulean blue chromium is one of my favorite colors. I use that for the sky here. It has a very beautiful granulating texture. And here as well, you can see how the cerulean blue chromium and the other color, they sort of don't mix well together. So you have the separation of colors, which is very beautiful, very interesting. For the lines here, I used white gel pen, and for this part here, I believe I use white gouache just to paint the highlights. For these 2 pages, I was testing out the Daniel Smith Primatech colors, which are paints that were made from precious gemstones, so they are very granulating. The colors are quite nice. This pink light color, this is really nice. Mayan blue, pretty nice as well. Some of the colors, they are a bit opaque. like this one. If you use it in concentration, they may look like they are opaque, but they are still good enough for use with pen and ink. So this is a sketch that was painted with those colors on the left side. I used most of the colors straight from the tube and apply it onto the paper. I use additional colors as well, so for example, New Gamboge. This looks like Hansa yellow, and I have a red as well, in addition to the Primatech colors. The Primatech colors, they are not, how should I say it? They are not as vibrant compared to other colors like the quinacridone colors or the phthalo colors, so you can actually use them straight from the tube. And they would not look that out of place. These are some color swatches. Quinacridone magenta mixed with lemon yellow. Permanent Alizari crimson mixed with lemon yellow. New Gamboge, yellow ochre, sap green. I cannot remember why I painted these color swatches. More Ecoline ink tests. Here I'm trying to fade the colors into each other. It's not as easy to do so with Ecoline ink compared to watercolor. Maybe that's because I don't use such inks as often. So here you can see some spots on the paper. I think this paper is may have some problem. This is Fabriano studio paper, cold pressed 25% cotton. So it's not that thick. So some of the ink actually went through, bleed through to the opposite side. So if you are using thin paper and you are using inks, then be sure to test out the ink on the paper first before you use it for actual artwork, especially on paper that is not that thick. And this paper I think has some issues, so you can see all these little dots here. But otherwise, the Fabriano Studio watercolor paper is a very nice watercolor paper for painting. You can reproduce watercolors really vibrantly. This is a sketch drawn early this year on the 18th of January at Haji Lane. So this sketch, I remember I had difficulty painting this sketch because I was using a rather blunt brush. So I wasn't able to paint the sharp edges, the tiny areas easily because the brush was quite blunt. I wasn't able to go into those tiny areas. So for the white lines here, again I used white gel pen. More color swatches. These are some of the reds that I have. Transparent Pyro Orange, Quinacridone Red, Quinacridone Magenta, Organic Vermilion, Quinacridone Rose, Perlin Red, Permanent Red from Shinhan, Permanent Red from Mission Gold. I believe this color is a bit contaminated. It should be more vibrant. Daniel Smith, Permanent Alizari Crimson, Daniel Smith, Pyro Scarlet, Winsor Newton Scarlet Lake, Mission Gold Rose Madder. So when you paint color swatches like this, you can compare them very easily. And even though these two colors, Quinacridone Red and Rose, they use the same pigment, PV19, they look slightly different. Of the reds here, in the future I will probably be switching to using Transparent Pyro Orange. I like the warm red here, maybe a Quinacridone Rose or Quinacridone Lilac, and maybe Perlin Red. Here's a black and white sketch drawn with pen and ink. For the textures here, I used the Pentel color brush pen, if I remember correctly. So the Pentel color brush pen is great for painting such blacks and grays very quickly. You can basically use it to fill up the colors very easily. It makes for quick sketching. Here's another limited color palette. This is Quinacridone Deep Gold, Perlin Red, and French Ultramarine. So with these three colors, these are the colors you can get by mixing. You can get a rather intense black. This is a cafe sketch. I cannot remember which colors I use. Maybe it's this color palette. Here's another cafe sketch. For drawing scenes like this where it's really white and there are a lot of things when you're drawing, you can place some lines, the important lines first. For example, with this particular sketch, the important lines would be this line that is made by the peeler and this line here that is made by this shelf. So once I draw these two lines in, I can start to fill in all the details that are within this boundary. Or sometimes I may just draw from left to right. Like for example, I may actually start from the left side to draw this area here and make my way across to the right side. This is a one-point perspective scene. So sometimes when I'm drawing, for example here, I would draw the bricks first, but then suddenly a customer would appear and I feel like I should draw the person in because it makes the scene livelier. So I will actually draw the person after I've drawn in the brick, in this case the brickwork. And so you can see some of the brick texture here that I have tried to carefully conceal by painting this area a bit darker, but you can still see the line art here. So here's a closer look at this cafe sketch. I don't particularly like this sketch because I'm not sure why. The composition, it's alright. The colors, the shapes, they are not that distinct. And it was the shadows, they kept changing that day. It was cloudy and then the sun came out and then it was cloudy again. So it's very difficult to get the lighting consistent. Sometimes when you're sketching, you will definitely make sketches that you don't like. So the more you practice, the better you get. More color swatches. Here I was comparing My Marie Blue versus White Nights. So on the left side, My Marie Blue, and on the right side, other brands. I have a video for My Marie Blue on my YouTube channel. More color swatches. Here's another sketch that I have made for a limited color palette video, if I'm correct. So here I used Aussie Red Gold, which is a combination of 3 pigments. And this is Quinacridone Lilac, PR122, Genuine Sleeping Beauty Turquoise. So with these 3 colors, I have this. I believe this sketch, I'm not sure if this was painted with this. It should be, it should be. So sometimes, I mean, many of these sketches were painted such a long time ago that I cannot remember the colors that I have used. So if you want to keep track of the colors that you use, maybe it's good to write down which colors you use somewhere on the paper so that you can refer to it in the future. Maybe you have painted that color, for example, if you have painted this color and you really like it, at least there is some way for you to know the actual color that you use for mixing. This is a sketch of a playground that is going to be torn down. So while I was sketching this, I was actually being interviewed by some other YouTubers or some other creators who were filming at the area. So this was done very quickly because I had to rush off to work. Trying to paint this beautiful lotus. It's a bit difficult for me to paint this, so I need more practice. The shapes, especially the shapes here for the leaves that are floating on the pond, they are not that recognizable. Now the thing with painting leaves like this is, when I'm looking at this scene, the leaves that are closer to me, they are going to be big, and the leaves that are further away, they are going to be smaller. Not just that, they are also affected by perspective, so you have to really concentrate and observe carefully in order to draw those shapes very accurately. So that would be the challenge when it comes to painting subjects like this. Actually, the challenge to painting on location is really on concentration and how good you are at observing. Here's a sketch that I sketched with my friends on one Saturday morning, if I remember correctly. This is the Quadrant building located in the city area here in Singapore. I have a video for this as well. In fact, I have a video for most of the sketches in this book. For this sketch, this was actually a video that I have made for one of my Patreon supporters. So he or she sent me a photograph and sent me a sketch for critic. So I made a video talking about how I would draw the same subject and how I would go about painting and drawing. So if you want to support me on Patreon, you can do so. Patreon is a monthly subscription service where you can pledge a certain dollar amount to support the artist that you like. This is more color swatches. So for this one, I was actually testing the quality of the watercolor paper. With good watercolor paper, you should be able to achieve wet on wet techniques easily. So things like fading the color into the white of the paper. When the paper is wet, you can add paint and the colors will diffuse softly. So this paper is alright, but it's not as good compared to 100% cotton paper. This paper only has 25% cotton. So sometimes when the paper is wet and you paint, when you're charging another color, like this for example, I try to draw lines, straight lines, and the colors. With good watercolor paper, the colors should blend very softly, but here you can still see the lines very obviously. So not that great for painting wet on wet. But if you want to diffuse softly, you have to be a bit more, how should I say, you have to be a bit more conscious about your process. And let's just say that it's not as challenging to achieve the same effect with 100% cotton paper. Here's another cafe sketch. This was drawn, wow, 16th of March 2018. Some of these cafes, the lighting in the cafe, it's really difficult to capture because some of these cafes, their lighting is quite dim, it's quite dark. So very difficult to capture that light. Here's another sketch that I drew based on a photo that was sent to me from a patron supporter. So he or she asked me how should one draw a white scene like this. To draw something like this where there is a lot of things going on, as mentioned earlier, I would try to block out the important boundaries first. For example, with this particular sketch, the important lines to draw would be this line, this table line. You can see this warp perspective, this circular perspective. So we have this table line. This line is important because this is one of the longest line, and everything sort of fits within this line here. I mean above this line here. Other lines that are important would be this line here, which is for the door or the doorway. This line here, this line here, Basically, all the lines that are important are the longest lines, because once you place these lines, this line, this line, and this line, you can know where this person is. This person is just right between this line and this line in the center area, and between this line and the left edge. So you can use all those lines that you have already drawn to do some placement. This was drawn October 2017, and the earliest sketch, yeah. So some of the sketches are, the dates where I made the sketches, they are a bit far apart. This was drawn from a photo reference, and this was drawn from a photo reference as well. This for this sketch, I wanted to test out this color, this paint here, which is Cobalt Blue Deep with the pigment code PB74. I wanted to basically paint this and make a video on the beauty of Cobalt Blue Deep. This is one of the most granulating colors, the most granulating paint that I have in my collection, and I really love this. This is Cobalt Blue, and this is Cobalt Blue Deep. It looks a bit like ultramarine, but with more granulation. This sketch was sketched from a reference photo. So this sketchbook is basically a mix of location sketches, sketches that I have made for my online drawing courses, sketches that I've made for the limited color palette painting video, and for me to test out some color swatches. So it's a pretty random book. I don't fill up sketchbooks that often, even though I wish I could draw more frequently. Most of my time is taken up by making YouTube videos like this, going out with my friends for sketching, and I have a lot of work to do, a lot of book reviews I have to write for my blog. So sometimes it's very difficult for me to find time to sketch on my own or sketch with my friends. The speed at which you are filling up your sketchbook is not as important compared to the process of actually drawing regularly, and also it's not that important compared to you actually enjoying what you are drawing. Alright, so thank you very much for watching this rather long video. See you in the next one. Bye!